Could you switch the camera?
Oh, just a minute. I lost your voice again. No, Kat, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, strange. Okay. I'm not on mute.
Maybe I'll connect back.
Yeah, I can't remember if you're probably the thing. They haven't come yeah. So I'm thinking they're working through that. Yeah, it's definitely, I believe I'm going to apply. There is nothing intuitive about it. You press one series of buttons, one time, and it gives you a certain result. Exactly the same next time, it gives you a different result. But yeah, essentially what we need to talk about is someone that's working with the training, what needs to be done. Yes, I was going to set that point up. I was going to set up a shared spreadsheet so that we could see what we can do. Yeah, and I'll do that inside. Yeah, that would be really tired. I mean, I could be tired in ways. It's not like I feel like I'm yeah, okay. This is what
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, just a minute. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, Kat. Sorry for the network issues.
Okay, don't worry.
Back to our Q introduction. Yes, please go ahead.
the thing would be.
Oh, hang on a minute now.
Hi, Kat. This is Satish.
Hi. Hello. Sorry, the camera cut out for a minute. Hi, guys. Good to meet you. Can you see me?
Yeah,
Can you see me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're seeing you.
Good to meet you guys. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey.
Okay.
And that's you, Calvin.
Okay, Kat. So, shall we continue?
Yeah. So we have about now. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Switch my camera too. So we have about an hour together today, and Sorry for cutting the meeting a little bit short. I needed to travel into London this morning, but we can always meet again later this week. So let's see where we get to today.
Okay.
We can, what I wanted to do today is take a look at the backlog. So for sure, we won't have time to go in a lot of detail, but I think it would just be good to look through the stories that are there, that are grouped together for the next phase, also to kind of reflect on the epics and to reflect on what View is doing. So where we're dependent on the work being done by Pearson View, which we still only have a little information about, but I can talk about that. And I think this would just be a good familiarization, really. Once we're more familiar with the backlog, I think it would be really good to step back and sort of look at it in a bit more detail, probably not in this meeting. And as much as we can, sort of do a kind of a test of confidence, I guess, in how we feel about delivering this work. Obviously, we have some challenges because we need to set up environments, and at the moment we're blocked on that. So that's something that I'm escalating and trying to do something about. But I think if we just looked at it from a development perspective and sort of think about how comfortable we feel delivering this by, I mean, our approximate milestone is end of January. So I don't think we should do that today. I think today we should just talk about stories. But it would be good to then meet and do a very rough estimation if we can. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Perfect. And I think actually once we've sort of walked through the backlog together as a team today, it would be great if you guys jump in and have a look for yourselves, and then you could actually add comments. So I noticed that that was already starting to happen last week, which is good. You can just go through and start commenting, ask questions. That will really help me to refine the stories as well. I've been doing some work on them the last couple of weeks, but your comments will be really helpful. So I can start talking about the high level, what we're delivering. That's probably a good place to start. But should I, because we have new team members, should I just do a quick overview of what we've currently developed, Kalpana, or has that already been done?
We'll leave it to the team work there.
Yeah.
Overview of the current side.
Yeah,
Directly jump into.
Yeah, Kat, we can have a quick.
Yeah, let's have a quick look. So share my screen. So let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can see your screen, Kath.
Perfect. Okay. So this is our QA environment here. Actually, I will go into the production environment first. So this is production. This is intended to work on mobile as well as desktop, and I think you guys, front-end guys, have already had a look at the mobile experience, which is good. I haven't had a chance to look at that email yet, but I will do. So we're on desktop for now. We have, I guess, built two main areas. One is where the search happens. So this is a screen here where an institution can search for a candidate by their registration ID, and I'll talk a bit more about that. And the other one is the manage users area. So this is where a super admin can set up institutions. So first thing to mention is currently we have two roles. We have a super admin who is typically Pearson. Typically that is somebody in our product operations customer support team who creates institutions and can create users and can create other super admins, actually, because there doesn't just have to be one super admin. But what we want to happen more and more is for the institution, the customer, to manage their own users. So once an institution has been set up, they can then add users and ultimately deactivate them, though that will come a bit later. So they can do all of that themselves. And the reason is that what we're finding from talking to these institutions, and these institutions are typically universities, right? They're universities, or they are government organizations that are verifying or validating candidate scores, their exam scores. And the really big players here are Australia, and to an extent North America. So it's mainly Australia, I think also New Zealand, North America, Australia particularly because the government there recognises the Pearson Test of English Academic as it's an exam that they can, trying to think of the best way to say it, the scores will actually count towards an individual's visa application. So if they are applying to study primarily overseas, then the Pearson Test of English Academic scores will be recognised as part of that application process. So it's really high stakes. In other markets like the UK or US or Canada, it isn't quite as high stakes in that it's not formally recognised by the government, but still universities will take the scores and will check the scores, and it's all part of the entry requirements. So this morning, we were talking very early to a university where a lot of people from the Philippines will apply to go study their nursing program, and they have to have an overall score of 65 for the Pearson Test of English Academic. So that's where they actually have to meet a particular score. So back to this, we want universities and admissions organisations to be able to manage their own users simply because there's a really high turnover of staff. So often people will come and go, they will join a programme, they'll leave a programme. So it's much, much easier on us and our customer support teams if institutions are managing their own users. So here I'm logged in as a super admin, and I can create a new institution here. You'll see here there's a code. So there is the ability in the current score reporting website to generate, automatically generate a code for an institution, and then further down the hierarchy for a department, and further down again for a program. And that's something that we're going to need to work on in the next phase of work. So we'll see that in the backlog. At the moment, there is no code automatically generated, at least. I don't think there is. So it's asking me for the code. Ultimately, we want the system to be able to assign that code. So if I'm creating an institution, I just fill out some basic details, so address, city, etc., and I can create them. And the code should be generated for me. And then once the institution is created, either we, the super admin or Pearson, or the institution themselves can create users. So they can add a user to the institution. You'll see here that there's only one role at the moment. So this is the other role that I mentioned, score report user. A score report user has access to search for reports so long as they have permission. So if they've got permission either within the institution as a whole or within a program, so we'll talk more about that hierarchy that we need to implement. As long as they have permission, a score report user can retrieve the candidate's report, and I'll show what that looks like in a minute. But we need to add a new role, and that's the role of institution site admin. So this is the role between super admin and score report user. An institution site admin, it belongs to the institution, so the university, for example, and they are the one who basically create the users. So if we want institutions to begin self-managing, it will be the institution site admin that will do that. So they would log into their institution. Obviously, unlike the super admin, they would only see their institution, not all institutions, and they would then be able to complete this form and create users. So that's one of the things that we will need to do in the next phase of work. If I want to search, and I'm going to have to go into QA now because it's the only place we are retrieving well, that's another story. But it's the only place I can easily see score reports at the moment. So I'm going to go into QA.
Okay.
So it's QA environment. Completely forgotten the code. Give me just a sec, because I just need to go get, I'm just going to go and get that code. What am I trying to do? Recent documents. These are the interview questions that we're asking our customers, because we're showing them the designs of the new school reporting website as they stand. Now I should be able to just find a code here. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Yeah. Go, registration ID. So as a test taker, I get a registration ID. Let me, just for a minute, you still see my screen? I didn't disable the screen, did I?
No, I haven't.
Perfect. You can see it, or you can't.
No, we can't see your screen, Jen.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll sort that out now. Give me just a sec. I'm going to bring something else up first.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make one. I want to see the jungle one, because the one that really shows how that's
okay. I'm trying to log into another site at the same time, and then I'll share my screen again. It won't be a second. Yeah. Okay, let me share my screen again. See again now?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So this is actually, this is not a site that we are building ourselves, but it's one that we actually have a link with. So this is the way that people taking the Pearson Test of English academic will can sign in and see their scores. So I've got to be honest, I don't know my way around this site too well. That's me and my profile. Just trying to see how, if I go to home. Okay, so this is where I can view my scores. I actually took the Pearson Test of English Academic. Here I can see my scores as a test taker. This is not something that we will ever see through our own score reporting website, because this is kind of the other end of the journey, really. But I can see here that I have some scores. I'm going to view my scores. And in order to do that, I need to download a PDF. There's no way of me viewing anything. But you can see here, this is me, terrible picture. You can see here I've got registration ID. And this is the ID that is given to me for taking this particular test. I'm a first-time test taker. It's the only time I've taken this exam. But you can actually take the score, you can take the PT academic exam as many times as you wish. I don't think there's any limit. So long as you have to leave 5 days, I think, between being able to register to take it again. So that means that I could actually have, I could take 3 exams and have scores for each exam, in which case I wouldn't be a first-time test taker, but also I would have a different registration ID for each one, because the registration ID is not just for me, it's for the particular exam I've taken. So if I retook this exam, say in August, if I'd retaken it last month, I would get another registration ID. And it's that ID, sorry, let's go back to here. It's that ID that a score report user will search against. So they will get the registration ID from the candidate as part of the application process when the candidate is applying to go to that university. and they will then be able to search by registration ID, and they'll be able to retrieve the report as it currently stands, and the ability to download PDF as well. This is a real difference to how they're currently doing things. Kalpana, do you have access to the current score reporting website?
The current one, the one you're showing.
No, what I mean is, give me a second. I mean, this one here. This is our current score reporting website, yeah?
No, Kath.
Yeah, so I need to hurry that up a bit, because currently it's really, it's logged me out. So this is like, honestly, the work we will do on this will be so valued. The current score reporting website is really, it's not very good at all. It's very slow. When you get logged out, it's not easy to log back in again. And you have to drill down through lots of categories to even get near a report. So honestly, believe me, the work we're doing on the new score reporting website will be very valuable. But I'll get you access to the current score reporting website. The main thing there is that it's a really long process to get to the report. So actually, the fact that now you can just search instantly using a registration ID, or you will be able to, that universities will be able to do that, is going to be really, really valued by customers. So it's really cut down their time in terms of retrieving scores. Does that all make sense? Is there any particular questions you have before we move on to talking about the backlog?
No, Kath.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and just to be really clear, this that I'm showing you here, this is the, I think the system is called WebNG. This is managed by Pearson VUE. It's the system that the test taker uses to register for an exam, see their scores, and send their scores. So this is the bit that we really care about, because this enables me or any other test taker to decide where I want to send my scores.
Okay.
So think about, see if I can find something here. I think it's one. Yeah. So I can't find one relevant one for, actually, I'll try this. I'll just try searching by this. And get rid of city. Yeah. So I've just searched Queensland, and this gives me a list of all of the institutions. So these are, in some cases, you can see they're the same institution. In some cases, they're different ones. And this is how I can decide where to send my scores. And we care about this because this is how somebody in an institution using our service, using the score reporting website, can retrieve a score by a candidate, because they've actually allocated them there. So we have a connection with this system, but we don't actually have any influence over how it works or how it's designed. One thing you'll notice is that you're seeing, in some cases, all programs. And then in some cases, there's a specific program. So Australian Institute of Advanced Studies, which is an institution in Queensland, Australia, you can either, as a test taker, allocate your report to all programs, or you can allocate to a particular program if I was interested in engineering. That's a bit of a pain point for our customers, because often test takers get very confused about where to allocate, and they might allocate to the wrong program. So that's something that we're looking at, and we do need to think about in relation to the score report website. But it's just an example of how it's very, what the test taker does here, and what the institution, a score report user can view, is really dependent on what the candidate has done and where they've allocated their report. So that's a kind of quite a major pain point for institutions right now, in that test takers are either not allocating their report at all, or they're allocating it to the wrong place, so it doesn't show up in a search. So I'll talk a bit about that in relation to the backlog as well. Okay, so I just put this together very quickly to talk about, at high level, what we're doing in the next phase. So what we want is an improved search for candidate reports. I know that sounds odd because actually it's very quick, right? If you have the registration ID, it is really, really quick to search for a report. So that's really, really good. But the problem is if you don't have that registration ID, and that's what I was talking about. So if a candidate actually fails to send their scores to the right place, or they don't send them at all, they send them to the wrong program, or something like that, then actually, depending on the access a score report user has, the report may not show up in a search. So what we want to do now is allow institutions to search by another kind of code. So the registration ID is dependent on the candidate allocating their scores, sending their scores through the view system to an institution. What if they don't do that? So we, with View, are working on a new kind of code, which means that actually score report users don't need to allocate. So actually they don't need to take that step here. They don't need to take that step of sending their scores. It will just be that the institution can retrieve them by their unique ID. So the unique ID is not the registration ID, and it's actually not, so go back in again. It's not the test taker ID either. The test taker ID is unique to the test taker. But I guess it's somewhat similar to this because it will uniquely identify who the candidate is, and it will identify their results. But they don't have to have allocated their report. So that's a fairly major thing that we need to do to resolve the problems customers are having when candidates forget to allocate their score report. Is that clear? Do you have any questions about that, or can I explain that better?
Okay, so going forward, we'll have two search, right? One is using
I'm really sorry, guys. I can't hear you very clearly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so going forward, we'll have two options to search for a score report, right? So one is using an ID, and the other one is using that unique code.
Yeah, exactly. So we're calling it SRAC, Score Report Access Code, at the moment. So its working title is its unique ID. So you're right. Okay. Yes, we the ability to search for. They will have the ability to search for both.
Okay.
Okay. So thanks for picking up on that, because actually that's another really key point that we're going to need to design that journey. Because right now, you search by registration ID. What we now need to do is, we've now got basically 3 codes in the mix. We've got the test taker ID, which is unique to the test taker but isn't much used. We've got the registration ID, which is unique to the test taker and the particular exam they've taken. So, whether it's their first, second, or third attempt at taking PT Academic. And now we've got this unique access code as well. So there's a lot of codes. And we really need to make it simple for the institution to retrieve them based on the code that they've been given. So what I'm thinking, and we need to talk to, I will introduce you to Jag Rai, who is our UX lead on this project. So I'm bringing him back in now. What I'm thinking roughly is that, if we go back to search, there would probably be an initial screen where they would be asked for, the institution would be asked for the unique code. And if they don't have that, they can then maybe go to another screen where they put in the registration ID. So we might want to do it as a stepped process. The other way, the alternative is to give them different options on the same screen, but it would worry me that they might become a bit confused. So we're probably going to have to do some user testing around that as well. Other things we need to do on improved search is look at all allocations by date. So right now, if I log into the new score report website, I can't see if I've been allocated a number of different reports. So the first screen I see, ignore the fact that this is super admin, right? So this would be a score report user. The first thing I see is the ability to search, but really probably what I want is to know whether I've been allocated any scores by candidates in the last 2 weeks, for example. So we need to also introduce something where a screen where a score report user can see if there have been any scores allocated to their program, and can then decide if they actually want to retrieve one of those reports and look at them in more detail. That will also require new design. And then searching by the data points, I'm not sure about, actually. I'm not sure we need to do that. Our current research and our interviews suggest that possibly not, but I will firm this one up and decide whether it's down the backlog at the moment, so it's not priority, but I will decide whether we need to do that at all. This is the more important part, searching by unique ID. Other things around the report design, candidate photograph. You will have noticed something, hopefully. You will have noticed that there's no photograph, which is obviously pretty critical. And that's because we receive the photographs through a particular feed from Pearson VUE. And we tried to implement something relatively short-term and tactical, but it didn't work very well. So we actually have a better method, a more reliable method of doing this now. So when I come to talk about the work that Pearson VUE is doing, that's one of the things that they're working on. And then the other thing is the ability to listen to audio. So when I give you access to the current score reporting website, and I would show you this now, but honestly, the site is quite slow, so it would take a while to bring it up. But what you can also do as a score report user, when I've retrieved a score report by a candidate, I can see their photograph, but I can also play a snippet of audio of that candidate speaking. At the beginning of a Pearson Test of English exam, the test taker is actually asked to introduce themselves. So when I took the exam, I just said, hello, my name is Kath. I am here doing this exam for research purposes. I work for Pearson. Obviously, I was not a typical test taker. But this is where the test taker would be talking about, my name, I am interested in studying abroad. I want to go here. I want to do this. This is the career I'm interested in. And it's another way of the institution actually verifying that the candidate is who they say they are. So we call it a voice print. This information is also sent by VUE. So we also need an integration that means that we can receive not just the candidate photographs, but the voice prints too. What else? So institution management, I've also already talked about. So what we need to do is more of a hierarchy. Just getting, sorry, really strange messages on Slack from my other team, just ignore them. We're not just at the level of institution. Each university will have a hierarchy, so they will have different departments or schools, and they will also have different programs within those schools. And actually in some universities, they are very particular about which staff get access to what. So they might, for example, say that an admissions person who is part of an engineering program should not get access to the admissions and the score reports that are sent for a computer science program, for example. There would be a distinction. So we need to make sure that we've implemented that hierarchy, which actually exists in the current score reporting website. And we need to be able to make institutions active or inactive, although that's lower priority right now. And then I've mentioned how we want institutions to begin to manage themselves. So this site admin role is really critical. And that site admin at the institution, at the university, will then be able to create new users just as a super admin can. The super admin will still be able to do that too. We're pushing the responsibilities over to the institution. Another thing we need to do is historic import. So we need to load all of the data, well, not all of the data, but 3 years worth of data from our current score reporting service. So that service is going to be live for some time. And what we will do, I think, is when we're ready with our new score reporting website, we will probably launch it in parallel with running the old site and migrate customers over gradually. So we need a whole plan around this, which is definitely touching on change management. And one of the things that View will do, Pearson View, is they will send us all of the data relating to institutions, no time limit on that. All of the data relating to users in those institutions, so those are site admins and score report users. And they will send us 3 years worth of results for test takers who've taken the exam. And we will also need to get allocations. We'll need to know historically where those test takers allocated their scores. So why 3 years? It's because institutions are able to use a score report to verify an application by a candidate for up to 3 years. After that, the score report is not valid. Now, you may have noticed that on the score report itself, it looks like there's actually a 2-year validity period. And that's because as far as the test taker is concerned, it is 2 years. They can only allocate their scores within 2 years of taking the exam. But from the institution's point of view, our customer's point of view, they can actually use score reports for up to 3 years since the exam date. So we'll need to import 3 years worth of results and 3 years worth of score allocations. And we need to work with View to understand what that data looks like, what the payload looks like, how we store it, so that we can implement the ability to store that data and institutions can retrieve score reports which are up to 3 years old. Any questions about that before I move on to View and what they are doing?
Hi, Kat. Is there any existing mock available for? Hi, Kat.
Hi, I can hear you. Yes.
Is there any mock UA available for implementing a department school programs UA application?
Have we implemented that currently, do you mean?
Yeah, department school program.
Yeah, that's something that we need to do.
Yeah, it's a new feature. Yeah,
it's a new. It's not a new feature in that it exists in the current site. So in the old score reporting website, which is still live and people are still using, it exists there. But we need to replicate that feature in our new score reporting website. So as far as we are concerned, it's a feature that we need to add.
Yeah, okay. It's mock UA? Yeah, design, mock design.
Do we have a design for it, do you mean?
Yeah.
Not yet. No, not yet. So we've got some catch up to do with designs, which is why I'm bringing Jag back in. So you'll meet Jag. Actually, we should try and do that this week. I'm meeting Jag this week to look at the backlog and look at the priorities. So we will need Jag to work on designs for quite a number of things, right? Around searching for departments, accessing departments and schools, accessing programs. We're going to need designs for the site admin role, although to be honest, it's going to be heavily based on the designs for the super admin. So Jag is definitely going to need to put some new screens together. And I've flagged that in the stories themselves. So I've indicated where designs are needed.
Okay, Kat.
Okay, perfect. Right. Any other questions before we go on to View?
No, Kat, we are good.
Great. Okay. So View, what are they working on? Pearson View. So do you guys know who Pearson View are? Because I keep talking about them. Fine to say no, by the way. I can explain.
He's asking, do we know what Pearson View?
Have you guys come across Pearson View before?
No.
No.
No, Kat.
Okay, Pearson View are part of our business. They're part of Pearson, but they're also quite separate. I know that sounds strange. They're sort of a business within our business. They are based in the US. I think they're based in Minnesota. And they're a large organization. What they do is they manage assessments. They have test centers where candidates will actually go. So a secure test center. I've been to one, actually. We have one down the road from the office in London. Candidates will go to a secure test center, and there's all kinds of security. There's like palm vein detection. You scan your hand when you walk, you go in. You're monitored when you're taking in an exam. It's, you're heavily proctored. They're really secure. And their business is assessment, so enabling test takers to take different kinds of exams. Pearson Test of English is an exam that is very important to Pearson as a business. But actually, as far as VUE are concerned, they have much, much, much bigger exams. They have much bigger parts of the business. So they deal with clinical assessments, which is huge. They deal with people taking driving tests. Really, the Pearson Test of English Academic uses the VUE infrastructure, the systems, the software, and the test centers, and all the logistics. But actually, as far as VUE are concerned, it's relatively small. They have much, much bigger areas of their business. They work in quite a different way to us, so we're still finding our way with them somewhat. I understand that in this phase of work, they will be working in an agile way, which is good, because previously that wasn't really apparent. But it seems that they are beginning to work in more of an agile way. I don't have a huge amount of information from them at this stage, other than these are the epics that they have identified. So this is what they're going to be working on, and this is roughly the order. We're still waiting for the plan, so we know more about the time frame, and we know more about when they're going to be doing what. And that's important for us because we're going to need to test. And we really want to make sure that we're aligning our backlog with what they're doing, right? So that's a really important bit. So their first epic is the biometric feed for R10. So this is sending the candidate photographs. If you remember, I showed you on the report the photograph. It isn't there currently. Close this one down. I'm just going to QA. Yeah. So we need a way to receive those. We tried a tactical solution, which didn't really work. So we're now doing it a better way. And this is what VUE will build out to send us. Also, so this is a new feature for them. Okay, they don't currently send the photographs through R10. What we do get through R10 are the test results, the candidate information, and we get information on where the candidate has allocated their score, which institution, but we don't get photographs. So it's a new feature for VUE to build. The second thing, and these are their words, so at the moment we're not sure which one they're going to work on first. The second thing they need to work on is the access code, right? So I've mentioned this unique access code. We will get that from VUE. And we don't know too much other than that this is a fairly major thing for them because they need to work across a number of different teams to be able to generate this. It will be sent to us as part of one of the existing R10 feeds. And I think it will come with the candidate results. That is to be confirmed, but we will actually get this through R10, through the real-time event notifications. Other epics they're working on are, okay, this one, Education Program API. One big dependency we have, this is going to take, let me try and explain this. So if we have an existing score reporting website, right, that is in use. where institutions retrieve scores, and I will share credentials to that. So you can see what the current experience is. You can see, frankly, how bad it is as well. And you can see, just get a feel for the site and how it's working. Because we're actually replicating a lot of those functions in the new score reporting website, but we're just doing it better. So we have that existing site, but we also have, as I showed you before, the system that the test taker has access to. And as a test taker, if I want to allocate my scores and send my scores, then I need to be able to retrieve institutions that I can send my scores to. So can you guys see what a possible problem is for us, given that we are now taking on the ability to create institutions? Can you see what a possible conflict is there? No? I can explain. So if we're starting to create institutions on the new score reporting website, we need to make sure that there is a connection with the site that the test taker sees, because otherwise, say we add a new institution here in our score reporting website, then we need to make sure that the test taker can actually see that institution listed. So basically, a lot of our score reporting website is about receiving information, but we actually need to be able to send information back. When we start creating new institutions, our super admin starts doing that, we need to make sure that that information is sent back to the WebNG system, which is where the test taker can go and see the institutions that they need to, that they have the option to send to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, does that make sense? Good. We can do this manually in a bit of a rubbish way by just regularly sending data, however we choose to do it, every time we create a new institution, or, you know, but that's just not, you know, it's not scalable. So what Vue want to do is actually build an API, which means we can more effectively manage, sync up the creation and the deactivation of institutions between our score reporting website and the registration and scores service that a test taker uses. So that's another major piece of work. So what Vue want is to be able to receive the list of institutions for candidates to select from to send their results. So every time we change an institution or add a new one, Vue need to be able to see that so that the candidate will then be able to see that institution. Fourth epic from Vue's is the audio files. So I mentioned the voice print where the candidate records themselves speaking. Vue will need to send that to us too. Now that will not come through R10. That will come through something called the client data interface, client data interchange. So if you go into the score reporting manifesto, you will find a link to some documentation, and it will just explain a bit more about what that is particularly. So you can do some more reading on that. But that's another integration that we need to enable, and we need to find the way of storing those audio files. And then lastly, we've got the data export. So I mentioned that we need to import data from the last 3 years. So Vue need to send that data to us. This will be done towards the end of development. It's probably one of the last things we want to do. Okay. And it will be a one-time load, I think. I think that's the idea. Because once we've got the data, we've got it. You know, we don't need to receive it again, because from that point onwards, we'll be integrated. Well, we already are actually integrated with Vue, so that every time a candidate gets their results and sends them, then, you know, they will be able to allocate them to us. So that's already in place. We just need to make sure that we have the last 3 years worth of data. And then they've got another epic, which is around testing and long-term care. So this is more on their side, really, making sure that they have the processes and the maintenance and the testing in place to maintain their side of the service. We are going to need to do the same thing for our side of the service. Any questions on that? That was sort of an explanation of what we're working on, but also sort of where our dependencies with Vue come in. And is there a different way that I can explain this? Is it clear, or is there something I could do just to make it more easy to understand?
It is clear, Catherine.
So far, you're clear. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll share that. So that's the high level, and I realize actually it's taken quite a lot of time just to talk through that. So I think I'm going to revise my plan about backlog. Let's go in and have a look. So I'm in Agile Jira, which I think you all have access to. I think what I'm going to suggest, because we are low on time today, is actually that you guys, hopefully with this introduction, and I'll share those slides that I've just presented. I'll also share today, if I can, access to the current score reporting website. I think what would be really great now is if you guys take the time to go in and look at the backlog and go through the stories. And I'll show you the bit to look at. And then let's have another meeting where because if you go through the stories and put your questions in place and comments, then I can have a look at those and we can have another meeting where we talk about some of those in a bit more detail. So I think that would probably make more sense than me going through one by one today. And frankly, we don't have the time anyway. So let me just introduce you to what's here. Phase 2 is, and I've got target date 31st of January. So this is the target date for the current phase of work. And I have put this, so this is a backlog that we have. And actually what I'd say is at this stage, don't look, it's backlog. So we've got a real backlog, which is stuff that we're not going to do in the next phase. So don't look at that yet. Just look at the stories here. A few things that I'll draw your attention to. Right at the top, we've got some bugs, which are things that need correcting, relatively minor things that need correcting in the current designs, which weren't fully implemented. And then we sort of move more into the stories. And what I've done is I've put in some Vue epics as labels. So Vue SRAC means score reporting access code. That's the unique code. Vue biometric means the biometric feed. Vue edu API means the education API. So when I send you the slides, I'll show you how these map to the Vue epics I've just been talking about. But what I'm trying to do here is pretty basic. I'm just trying to show where there's a very kind of a hard dependency with Vue. And ultimately, we need to make sure that we've ordered this backlog to reflect the order that Vue are working into. And audio is the voice print, so receiving those audio files through CDI. Okay. And we've also got historic import, which is further down as well. So that's importing all of the institutions, the users, and 3 years worth of results data. So you can see those. Some stories don't have a label, and that's because they're more independent. So we're not really dependent on Vue for those. I've only labeled the ones where we are dependent.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry, Kalpana, go ahead.
No, I just said okay. Please carry on.
Okay, great. So I have been doing some refinement on the stories, and I have, in some cases, I've added acceptance criteria. So you will see those with a number of stories. In other cases, I haven't, just because we need more detail at this stage. So in terms of ordering the backlog, the way we'll do it is business priority, obviously. So I'll need to give that view. But we will also, I think, need to reflect the order that Vue are working in. So the order of epics that they work in ultimately should be the order we work in. And also the most refined story should go first. So where we're in need of more information, we either have to get the information very quickly or we deprioritize it. So all stories will have descriptions and they will have detail. I've also, though I think I probably need to do this better, have showed where there are designs needed. Now, we can actually flag that in a different way, right? So we can, in other projects I work on, we actually have that as a label. The only thing is that we currently have these as labels, so we might need to think of something else. But for sure, we should put a flag against the story if the design is not ready yet. So at the moment, I've noted it as part of the description. If you come across any stories which don't have designs, then please let me know. Please comment, add a comment. And then if I haven't flagged it already, then I really should do. So I need to make sure that we're really clear on where we need to add designs.
Sure thing.
Yeah, so all stories will have, a number of stories will have acceptance criteria. All stories should have a description, so it should be clear what it is. Where there's a dependency with view, there should be a label. And where there are designs needed, that should be noted in the description. And I'm going to start flagging those stories. So one thing to say is right now, this isn't in hard and fast priority order because I'm still waiting for some information from Vue. And because I also just wanted to have a conversation with the team first, just to get a sense of how you feel about the scope. So this is what I'm going to suggest as the next step. Take a look at this backlog. Go through the stories. So only phase 2, go through the stories. Comment where you have any questions about anything. Comment where you think designs are needed, you're not seeing the designs and I haven't noted them. And we will then have a follow-up call. Let's try and do that this week.
Okay.
To go through the questions, and then we can really kind of as a team begin to refine this backlog in a bit more detail. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So just do it in your own time, and then I can really get a sense of the questions you're asking, which will be really good for me as well. So I will share I'll share the slides in just a minute. Kalpana, what is the team's availability like later in the week? We've moved the kickoff meeting now, so we have a little bit more time. Would it be possible to maybe meet on Thursday or Friday?
Yes, Kat. I'll check your calendar for Thursday and we can have a call on Thursday.
Perfect. Yeah, give people the time they need to get familiar with this backlog. I'll look at comments and questions as they come up.
Okay.
But let's aim to meet sort of around Thursday and then we can talk everything through.
Okay, Kat.
Okay, that sounds good. So thanks, guys. And I will look forward to your comments and I'll look forward to talking to you more later in the week.
Sure.
And Kalpana, I've seen your emails about Mache. Sorry, I've seen some of your other emails, so I'll respond to those. On the DevOps, I am escalating that. So I'm going to see if we can actually get some servers set up in the US and see if we can get some help from an engineer there too.
Okay, Kat.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Really good to talk to you, and let's talk later in the week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Bye.
Okay. Take care, guys. Bye.